recording at this point in time. And can you guys see my screen okay? Everyone? Anyone? Quiet crowd. Okay. I see a lot of familiar names out there. Is there anyone on that hasn't used the system yet? Just throw up a hand or just let me know, chime in. So I'm thinking everyone here, they look familiar. Looks like we got a bunch of traders. Okay. So I was going to go over band basics, but I guess we don't have anyone new on here unless you guys. Oh, okay. Chastity, we'll go over this then. Okay. So if you can see my screen, what you're looking at is the typical setup that a traditional trader will use when they're trading stocks or maybe even Forex. You have indicators on here like the 200-day moving average, the 50-day moving average, the 90-day moving average. And sometimes they can use it for support and resistance levels. Also, they'll add their own trend lines, history for the stock's movement, things like that. But there's a better way to visualize the data, and that's where the arbitrage system comes in. Arbitrage system has 5 bands, and you ask, what is a band? All right. So the first band in the system is Arbitrage Band, and it is the smallest band. And let me clean this up so we can talk about it a bit better. And I will hide that. Okay. So at its very basics, this is the arbitrage band. You've got a mean, which is the mean price for the stock, and you've got one standard deviation up or down. And typically your stock should move somewhere within these 2 standard deviations. Anytime you get outside of these deviations, it's aberrant. And you look for a mean reversion, which means if it comes out here, it's going to get pulled back in. Or if it comes out here, it's going to get pulled back in. But this by itself doesn't give us a lot of information. So let's add one of the more important lines in the system called the RSI. Now, the RSI line is the same function as typical RSI, except in our system, it's bound within the band. As far back as we go, as far as I can zoom out, you will not see this black line ever leave this band because it can't. So it can travel from the top of the band to the bottom and back and forth, and you'll see it zig and zag and back and forth. But pay attention to what happens. So we get to the top of the band, we get what's called a deflection, and then it travels down and it deflects again. Now, this wasn't a great deflection, but it did kind of trend up a bit until it hit here. And then all of a sudden, I guess we got a lot of activity and volume in here because it actually turned the band up and it went up with it. We got another deflection up here. But in any case, it never leaves the band and we look for deflections. How do we know it's going to deflect? So let me add in our deflection zones. So at the top of the band and the bottom of the band, you have an upper danger zone and a lower danger zone. And you can also see that the danger zone is split into 2 now. You kind of have light gray with a dark gray outside. What happens is that kind of came about when we were looking for stock setups and we wanted to understand, okay, well, the RSI is in the lower danger zone, but is it really going to deflect? So this is what this outer danger zone was created for, because that way, once we know the RSI enters there, we're really looking for a deflection. Again, this line never leaves this band, and seeing it in the top is a good warning, and seeing it in the bottom is also a warning. That means that if you're holding this stock and you see this line and it starts to enter up here, it's about time to find the exits, because what's going to happen is it's going to deflect down and you're getting a downtrend. Same thing if you're looking at buying this stock, you want to find it, I don't know, this is handy, when it's sitting here in the bottom of the band, because it can't go down any further. Now, the band could still turn and go down, but we have other indicators that'll tell us what way the band's going. But you really want to enter when you see RSI in the bottom of the band like this. So now let's add another important line in the system, arguably the second most important line in the system. And this is called the compass. And this tells us how the trade's moving. How is a stock moving? Are people buying? Are people selling? which way is it going? And it also gives us an important entry and exit signal. And it's significant to the system in that any time this blue line crosses this black line, up or down, you get either an entry or an exit signal. And we use this as basically confirmation of a trend. So if I come in here and I turn on these, you'll see that every time it crossed the blue, we got an entry signal. Every time it crossed down, we got an exit signal. Over, entry, down, exit. And the same is true for every band in the system. So I mentioned earlier there's 5 bands, and the bands function kind of like Russian nesting dolls. One band fits inside the other, fits inside the other, fits inside the other. And they are in order from the smallest band to largest. You've got the Arbitrage Band, which we're looking at right now, the Novus Band, the Intermediate Band, the Advanced Band, and the Apocalypse Band. And the Apocalypse Band is probably the largest useful band in the system. And a lot of our trades, we use the Apocalypse to look at profit margins, potential movement, and it also happens to contain one of the most powerful lines in the system called the pulse, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So you see these entries, you see these exits. These are your kind of the simplest confirmations we have in the system. Let me add in momentum. So momentum is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a momentum line. It kind of tells you, along with the compass, how is the trade going? And you really want to see the blue line above the red, because that tells you you're in a serious uptrend, because the red is drawn up to the blue. When the blue drifts down, it's kind of, the momentum is slowing down, right? And you can see here, as we kind of sagged a bit, blue went under red, but it kind of was ambivalent. And then finally, the blue gave in, and we crossed, we got an exit. So these two lines are important to pay attention to, and the relationship to each other also, because understanding that the blue is above the red is a good uptrend. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, so I mentioned that we had 2 standard deviations here, one up and one down from the mean. Well, the system actually uses 6 standard deviations. And it gets a bit noisy when I'll add it in. So what you have is first or second deviation up, third deviation up, second deviation down, third deviation down. If you get a stock that's in this area, you have about a 97% chance of a mean reversion, which means it's going to come back. If it gets out here, it's like a 99.7% chance of turning. And if it gets all the way out here, it's just crazy improbable. And you can see there's a very faint line. We actually put a 4th deviation line out here, but it really statistically insignificant, because the probability of getting out there is very, very slim. So you see the lines, you see the band. Now let's look at some candles. And let me trim those. You know what? Let me do this first. So let's turn the candles on. Okay, so look at what happened here. We had an entry signal, compass crossed the RSI, and this thing just took off. In fact, it actually went way out of probability, because this is a 4th deviation line up here, and it actually went outside of that. So there was no doubt we were getting a pullback on this. And the very next candle we did, it pulled it back into 3 deviations, and then it kind of worked its way back into 2 deviations and then back into reality. Here, something very bad happened to the stock. I'm not sure what, but we got an exit and it tumbled. In fact, it tumbled 3 deviations. So all the way from the top of this deviation, 1, 2, into the 3rd deviation. So that was quite a move. In fact, that happened really quickly too. And once we get down here, we look for a bounce, right? Because each line in the system also provides a level of support or resistance depending on what side the candle is, right? Because this line's under these candles, it offers support. Same with your compass and your momentum lines. They are also there for support or resistance. Now, you probably used to these red and green candles. They're just the standard colors. But what if we had something that was more descriptive? So now let me add our coloration for our system. And now it looks a lot different. So these candles here are very, very special candles. You don't see them that often, but they are to get your attention and make sure that you are not there. These are really warnings. If the exit signal wasn't enough to tell you to get out of this trade, these pink candles are definitely enough to tell you to get out of this trade. And it's because the RSI is in the upper danger zone and you got an exit signal. So guess what? You got pink candles. Now we got another crossover here. See the corresponding exit signal? But there's no pink candles. And that's because at the point in time we got the exit, the RSI was not in the upper danger zone. So now we have blue candles. Blue candles are our standard down candle. If you see a blue candle, you know the candle's a down candle. Just like if you see a yellow candle, it means it's an up candle. Now there's also some nuances here that may be hard to see. I don't know if you can or not, guys. A white candle is what I call an ambivalent candle. We had a lot of up and down. It's kind of a tug of war between who's going to win. But there's also an outline to this candle. And this white candle is outlined in green, which means, yes, there was a lot of up and down, but because it's got a green outline, it tells you there was more up than down. If I look at this candle here, it's also white, but it has a red outline, which tells me there was more down than up. So we're trying to give you as much information as possible in the system. We also usually get, let me see if I can find one. We also get green candles. Here we are. And these are the opposite of our pink candles. So the RSI is in the lower danger zone and we got a crossover. So we get green candles. Those are good candles. Those are great for your window of entry. Okay, now let me talk about the other bands. So let me turn off some of this so it's not so noisy. Let me get to yeah, okay. So let me turn off deviations. Let me turn off candle colors. And actually, you know what? I'll turn off candles, period. That'll make it easier to see. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to this orange line. I told you that the arbitrage band is the smallest band in the system. And the band below it, we always say below it, it's the bigger band, is the Novus band. Now, let me hide this and bring up the Novus band. And there's a Novus band. And it has its own mean, and the mean on the Novus band is this blue line. And it also uses a compass and momentum. It also has entries and exit signals. But notice the RSI is a different color for this band, and the RSI on this band happens to be orange. Now, here's something interesting. The RSI for the Novus band is actually the mean of the arbitrage band. So if I turn this on, notice that line didn't move at all. And if I hide it, hey, it's still the mean of the arbitrage band. But now when I add in the Novus band, still there. And that's true for every subsequent band in the system. So watch the blue line. The next bigger band below the Novus band is intermediate band. If I turn this on, the intermediate band is purple, but its RSI line is blue. And if I hide the Novus band, you'll see that it did not move at all. And we go from intermediate to the advanced band. The advanced band is yellow, and its mean is this hot pink line, which also serves another purpose we'll see in a second. And then we get to the biggest band in the system, which is the Apocalypse band. Now, this uses the mean of the advanced band for its RSI, but we also call it the pulse because it is the pulse of our system. Basically, the way it works is all the candles are drawn to this line. Whatever time frame you're on, the candles move towards this line. It's like the biggest gravity well in our system. So when I look at stocks, I typically will have my arbitrage band on and I will have my Apocalypse band on. And I do that because I want to understand, first of all, what is the short-term outlook for the stocks movement, and also what is the longer-term outlook for the stocks movement. So if I was to turn off the Apocalypse Band, and let me rewind to there. Let me turn my candles back on so you can see them, and let me get some candle colors. And you were looking at this and you're thinking, okay, you know, I'm not going to listen to my exit signals. I'm just going to ride here. Well, something happened. Remember I said something happened? This dropped. Well, what happens is you get the biggest band in the system. When it gets what we call a deflection, when the RSI hits the bottom or the top of the channel, it creates a ripple and it affects the stock price. Well, it doesn't affect the stock price. It affects the system, right? So if I turn this on, you can see where this started to fall is right where we got this deflection of the biggest band in the system. That's pretty cool. So deflection down, and it paid the price. And so now it looks like currently the stock, even though it's low in the arbitrage band and we're going to get a deflection up, it looks like this stock is just riding this pulse. Notice how this line, the pulse, is actually giving it support. You have two candles that poked through, but really you're focusing on your compass and momentum. And as long as your compass and momentum haven't broken through the pulse, it's still providing support to the price of the stock. Now, when I look at the stock and I say, okay, I look at all the system period, I'm like, isn't there an easier way? What if I'm new and I'm not really proficient at reading the system yet? Is there an easier way? Well, yeah, there is. So let me hide the Apocalypse Band. And we added a new indicator called the Atlas, or Arbitrage Atlas. And it's kind of our easy button. And what it does is you set it to one band smaller than the band you're viewing. And what that means is if I was on the Novus band, I would use the Arbitrage Band on Atlas. And that basically gives me foreshadowing. Because anytime you're in a trade, you want to know what's going to happen to the band you're on before it happens to the band it's on. So in order to know that, you've got to use a band smaller because it's more sensitive. In the case of the Arbitrage Band, the next band down, we'll call it a band, is actually the RSI line. So if I turn on the Arbitrage Atlas, look at that. So that is what the RSI band would look like, basically one standard deviation up and down from the RSI line. And you notice red and green. Well, that was probably, we decided the simplest way to display, should you be playing the stock or not. And if it's green, look for an entry. If it's red, get out. And our system is all about confirmations. You heard me earlier talk about this green arrow being one signal. We call it an entry signal and a confirmation of a trend. Well, the Atlas provides a second confirmation here. Basically, it said, you know what? I'm turning green, so you can get in at any time. But if you're really conservative, you wait for this entry signal. And then you got that. You're like, I've got two bullish signs to get in. I'm going to get in. And then I'd ride this trend, and then the minute it turned red, I'd get out. Because my rule of thumb is it takes me at least two signals to get in and one signal to get out. That means the trend's broken. Just like here. If you look at this, Atlas gave you warning, right? So you're in this trade, and Atlas went red on this candle. Bail. Get out. Why? Because if you hadn't bailed when this turned red, you had to take the pain of these two candles, because you didn't get the exit signal from the band itself until this big blue candle. And look how much it dropped in between. Whereas if you would have taken the warning it gave you on this candle, you would have been happy with your profits. Here, you probably gave most of them up. And that actually scales to whatever band you're using. So if I'm trading on, let's say, the Apocalypse Band and Apocalypse Band only, I would change my settings for my Atlas to the Advanced Band, because the Advanced Band is one band smaller than the Apocalypse Band. And I would look at it and say, yep, this is in downtrend. I don't want to be here. And anytime, just a tip for you guys, anytime you have the pulse traveling down in the Apocalypse Band, you're by definition in a downtrend, and it's probably not the best place to be. You especially don't want to be in here if the pulse is traveling down and the price and candles and the arbitrage band underneath the pulse, because then you've got the weight of this pulse kind of crushing it down. Because as I said before, the line provides support or resistance depending upon what side the candles are on. Because it's currently above, it's giving it a little bit of support, but this is where you start getting what we call the lower highs, right? You get, because this is traveling down, but it's also the support, as you start getting lower, these candles hit it, and every time they hit it, it's going to be lower and lower and lower. And if we drew a trend line, it'd go down something like this, and so you taper all the way down. So you know you're in a downtrend. Now, there's other things that the Atlas does for us as well. This is why we kind of call it the easy button. Let's go back to the Arbitrage Band, and we'll do a couple of other little tricks with this. So let me switch back to RSI, because RSI is the one band below my Arbitrage Band. And I'm going to say, show me windows. What are windows, you ask? Well, windows tell us when the stock goes out of probability. It basically means that the stock has fallen too far or climbed too fast. So it falls out of probability or climbs out of probability. So it's probably time to take your profits and get ready for a dip. So on this candle, we got an entry signal. Atlas is green, and we get a buy window open, right? That's what this blue dollar sign is. It means from this point until you see this green dollar sign, you have an opportunity to take your profits because you're at a probability and it's going to fall down. And if I bring up the deviations, you'll see why. So without having to understand the deviations, it's telling you, okay, I moved too fast. Okay, I'm really going too fast. And now guess what? I'm way out of probability and this candle's telling me you're done. And it kind of works, well, it does work exactly the same way on this. So you're having a fall, and this fall is going way too fast. And the band can't accommodate, it's got to stretch and grow a bit, but it can't do it fast enough for this fall. So sell window opens, and then it falls and falls and falls, and the sell window closes here. Now, if you are a stupid aggressive trader who doesn't mind high risk, this could be an entry. I would not recommend it because you're kind of flying solo out here. Because there's a lot of cases where, depending upon the momentum of a stock or a currency pair, this will just truck on down and it will just continue going out of probability because of a sell-off, or just it's going up because of a lot of people pouring in to buy something. So this is a really, really, really high risk entry because you have no confirmations, and we're all about confirmations. I would rather say, see Atlas green and this before I get in. There's also other things we can use. So on the Atlas, let's add tops and bottoms. Now these are not drawn in real time. In fact, I believe it's about 5 candles later. So this is kind of confirmation after the fact that this was a lower low, the lowest of lows, and this was the highest of highs for a certain time frame. These not to be used for entries or exits because, first of all, they come late, right? They're just informational. Then we could show, say, highs. So this is telling you, take your profit here. So you already know I'm in the trade, compass crossed RSI, got an entry signal, Atlas is green, go for it. I'm in the trade, I've gotten a warning that I'm out of probability, but I'm not ready to give it up yet. I want more profits, and I want just every last penny out of this trade. And so it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. When do I know to take my profits? Well, I told you right here, this is your higher high. This is where you really should get out because the window's probably going to close, and it did the very next candle. And we have the same thing on the low side. So if you're a person that plays shorts, or if you're trying to look or gauge for when you're going to get something that's going to turn around, look for your lower lows. And the lower lows are these green ones right here on the bottom. There, got a bounce here. Got a bounce under this S. You really can't see it because the sell window close is hiding it. But again, these are good indications that something's going to turn. But again, by themselves, they are not an entry signal or an exit signal. You look for confirmations. Use them in tandem. Don't ever use just one indicator by itself. Now, we also have other indicators we use. I don't know what plan. I'm sorry. Chastity, which part are you asking about? I'm just looking at the text now. You can take yourself off mute and feel free to ask a question.
The high, the double H, pink at the top, the pink double H at the top. You said the dot wasn't in real time.
Are you there, Chastity? I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yes. You said that the dots were like 5 minutes off.
5 bars, depending on what time frame you're on.
But what about that high, that
yes,
pink
those are drawn real time.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And I'll also add that these windows are drawn real time as well. So that sometimes you'll see them pop up and then they'll go away. And then they'll pop up again and they'll go away because they're actually being drawn real time. Excuse me. Okay, so other indicators. You've seen the bands, you've seen Atlas. What else helps us decide if we should be using or in a trade or not, or when a trade's going to find bottom, or when a trade's going to find top? So let me dig into my tool chest here, and let's go to, what do you think? Newest one, Z. Yeah, Z's a good one. So Z is kind of like another easy button. And what we're looking at is, we call it a combined Z, which means it takes the, I don't want to really say RSI, kind of RSI for all the bands, and it weights them. And it gives us an idea as to how each is moving and where it is. So if you look at here, you've got a 0 line. It's this heavy green dotted line here. And then this darker area above and below, well, above is, you've got a slight uptrend or you got a slight downtrend. And you have a 27% chance of that uptrend continuing if it stays in that area. Once you get into these areas up here or down here, those are legitimate downtrends or uptrends. And if you ever see it come out of bounds, it means that it just left probability. Now, the minute it leaves probability, you don't need to jump out of the trade. What you need to worry about is when it comes back in. Now, look at where that is lining up. So there, when it left probability, what did we get? We got our first buy window open. Told you you're leaving probability. And when it starts to come back in, you get, guess what? Your higher high. And then once it's done, guess what? Your window closed. So these are all designed to work in concert and kind of tell you what you should be paying attention to. And we try to put the information in front of you in as many ways as possible and give you as many confirmations as possible. Let me see, another one we could look at is, this is one of my favorites. I don't know if a lot of people have used this yet. Actually, there's two. So let me put on this one, Control, and then let me put on Level Pro. And let me do my thing to them because I use them a certain way. Okay. So first of all, Control, it tells you what the band you're using is doing. So I want to see the band, but I also want to see it's the Arbitrage Band. And I'm going to change this because I don't like these thin lines. Okay. And I look at this, and what is this telling me? Well, this is actually telling me something really important. So if you can see it, there's actually a green line. Again, it's a 0 line. And it is telling me, first of all, which direction the band is moving. If it's above, they're going up. If it's below, it's going down. But what is also important, and probably more critical, what it's telling me is what's moving faster, the band or the RSI. Why is it important to know that? Well, we look for deflections, right? And a deflection tells us, is it going to go down or is it going to go up? So here, we got our deflection, and we could, because the RSI was outpacing the band, so the RSI had the energy and the speed to catch up to the edge of the band and deflect down. Now, if you get to a point like this here, it tells me the band is moving up, and it's moving up faster than the RSI is moving up. So the RSI wasn't quite going down yet. It's kind of hovering in space, but the band continued to move up. But there's sometimes you'll see a band in an uptrend, and the uptrend will outpace the RSI. That's a good thing, because that means that you can have a prolonged uptrend because the RSI is not going to catch the side of the band and deflect down on you. So they continue up and up and up, and that's a good thing. It's not such a good thing on the inverse. So if you see the band in a fall like this, and the RSI is plummeting, you can expect a deflection in this case. I'm trying to see if we saw a fall that I was talking about. So I got a deflection there. It's not going to cooperate. Okay, here, yes. So here, you really wanted this to deflect. You really, really, really wanted this to deflect. What happened is the band started to outpace the RSI, which means this started to fall faster, and this couldn't catch the edge to give you a deflection up. And you can see it tapered off and slowed down, and the RSI started to catch up, and then here you got your deflection. Somewhere in here, how about that? And that is why I love this indicator, because I can kind of gauge how my band is moving and how long can I be in there. And I use it in conjunction with this indicator. And this is Level Pro. So Level Pro shows us which way is the band pointing, up or down. And it kind of gives you an idea as to how fast is it moving. So let's just say I'm trading on the Arbitrage Band, so I'll have the Arbitrage Band enabled. But best practice is to always have your compass and RSI up as well, because those are your critical lines in the system. I also like to have, it says advanced, but I'm putting the pulse up there because the pulse drives the system, right? And let me change these colors so it makes it really obvious to you guys what we're talking about here. And compass, let's make it blue, and let's make it vibrant, and let's go with RSI, and we'll make it black and vibrant. Okay. So now I'm looking at Level Pro. And let me move over here. And I want to understand, how is this stock moving right now? Okay, well, if I'm looking at this stock and I'm thinking, okay, I want to trade this stock, and I've got the RSI in the lower danger zone, so I'm looking for a deflection, or I may have just gotten a deflection. I can see that the compass is below the momentum line, so it's not really trying to get itself off the ground yet. But which ways are things pointing? Well, this might trick you because it is in the lower danger zone and you're looking for a deflection. But if you brought up Level Pro, you would see, guess what? It's still pointing down. That's your zero line right there. So it looked like it was going to go up, but it was a head fake, and now it's still traveling down. And you can also tell the Arbitrage Band is traveling down as well, because again, here's your zero line. Your compass is going to try to tip up, but it's still in bearish territory. And it looks like the pulse is just drifting into bearish too. So your apocalypse band in the background is also drifting down. So what does that tell me? Well, there's not a whole lot of speed difference in here, so I don't get to use this and make you go, wow. But normally, the scale here tells you how fast each band is moving away, up or down. This might be, say your RSI said 3 cents and your Arbitrage Band said 5 cents. That means Arbitrage Band is falling 5 cents every bar. And it means that the RSI is falling 3 cents every bar. But that also means that the band is outpacing the RSI, which means this can be prolonged, right? And because the scale's so tight here and it's barely moving, it's registering as 0. But this would be a watch, not an enter, because you've got no confirmations here to tell you anything is bullish yet. Because right now, Z combine's telling you, you know what, I'm kind of in a slow downtrend. And the band is moving slower than the RSI, and I know both are moving down. Not what I want to see. And if I was to bring up, let me throw up the Apocalypse Band and look at this mess and say, what am I looking at? Yeah, I wouldn't be here. Not now, at least. You might get a decent scalp out of this. So when I say scalp, your returns are based on the time you're in a trade. the longer I'm in a trade, the greater the reward could be, depending upon the setup. And because I'm looking at this on a 15-minute chart, and if I was going to be in this, I would only trade it on the arbitrage band. And I say that because this is generally in a downtrend, right? So I turn this off and I look at this and I say, okay, well, if I was going to get in this trade, what potential do I have? Well, rule of thumb is at least 2 deviations. Usually I will scale half out once I reach the mean, but I look at the price here and then I say, okay, what are my price targets? Okay, well, I'll go to the mean and say, you know, but keep in mind the mean's falling. So even though you're looking at it now and it says 534, it won't be there. It'll probably be down here somewhere and you're just guessing, but 532. So if I look at this and I say, what is my price? So 520, that's not a lot of profit, right? Because you're looking at 520, you're talking about 12 cents. It's top of the band, what are we looking at? 545, we're talking about maybe 25 cents. So the risk reward here is not great. I'm sorry, Mike, thanks. So I would actually look for a better trade because the risk reward here is not great. And did anyone have any questions on the indicators or how I use the bands at this point? Because I was actually going to delve into evaluating some stocks, looking for some trades and setups for tomorrow.
Actually, I do kind of question, with everything kind of pointing down, why not look for a short in this instance?
Looking for a what?
A short?
You definitely could. I don't typically play short. I'm actually got a long bias, but you definitely could. I mean, the system works that way too. So if you wanted to take puts or a short, you could. I wouldn't do it on this stock just because it's so low. You're just waiting for a deflection, right?
Gotcha.
So this is a setup it's going to turn eventually, and you don't want to be in it at this point if you're playing short because this could happen at any point in time. You're really deep in the lower danger zone here. So if the band slows down and the RSI speeds up, you're going to get a deflection. It'll probably turn up on you.
Gotcha.
If you were going to short, I would look to short here. You get the exit signal here, or this. This is a short entry here, actually, and take that down. Same thing as if you see it go out of probability here. This is another place I might take it if I played short. All right. Anyone else? Okay. So now let's look at some setups. I have this guy on my list, but I would never play him right now. He's a bankruptcy ticker. So I'll go ahead and delete him out of hand. Okay. And let's go. Actually, you know what? Okay. This will be kind of shocking and jarring for you guys. When I evaluate stocks, I typically look at 3 different time frames. I look at the 5-minute, I look at the 10-minute, and I look at the 15-minute. And I have the exact same indicators on every chart. And this is my evaluation setup. So I just I can scan all of them at once and see if there's a time frame I like it on or not one at all, and I'm just going to dismiss it. So if I was to look at this stock here, yeah, it has potential, but I don't like the fact that I know for a fact it's in bankruptcy and it could actually get delisted under you. The pulse is coming out of the lower danger zone, which is a good thing. And I also love the fact that the arbitrage band is above the pulse. So what's going to happen is as this rises, it's going to provide support to the band and the price and probably carry it all the way through the mean and to the top of the band. So if it's currently 20 cents, if you get to the mean, that's already 10%, right? It's only 2 pennies. But if you're talking about taking 10,000 shares, 20,000 shares, you could make a tidy profit. It's an uptrend because you've got the compass over the momentum line, right? So that signals uptrend. And your RSI is low in both in the arbitrage band and the apocalypse band. So this is actually a pretty fair setup. I just don't like it. And that's my own personal bias. I mean, even Level Pro is telling you everything is turning up into bullish. Z is telling you bullish. MACD's got a bullish crossover. So this is a fair setup. And I will leave it on my list because I have guys that can trade whatever they want. I'm just here to bring them some some setups, and they can choose whether or not to take it themselves. This guy, and at a glance, I'll tell you no. And why no? I don't like him on the 5-minute because this Arbitrage Band is way too far south of the pulse. It's never going to get there in any time soon. The 10-minute has potential, but your pulse is coming down, so we're in a downtrend. And this guy is just way out on the 15, and the pulse is still coming down, and it's above the mean still. So this wouldn't be one I would even look at. Who are we? Now, this one could be interesting. He's not quite there yet, but you've got the pulse coming down into the lower danger zone. He hasn't deflected, or maybe he did just barely deflect. I don't know. We'll see. No, let's say he's still coming down. And you've got the RSI for the Arbitrage Band coming down as well. So basically, you might see both RSIs deflect about the same time, so you might get a decent uptrend out of it. And I like it just because I look at the price. It's currently $2.18 after hours, and I look at the mean. It's $2.56. Well, that's what, 38% or 38 cents profit. That's a nice profit, and it's a quick swing because it's only a 5-minute chart. I look at control, which tells you, of course, how's the band moving in relation to its RSI, and I can tell you the downtrend slowing down, and the RSI is outpacing the band, so we can get a deflection. The pulse is not the same story. Okay, the pulse is going slower than the Apocalypse Band, which means that in theory the Apocalypse Band could drift further south, but I'm thinking that's because the pulse is actually pulling away. It's about to turn positive. And when I look at Level Pro, I look at the levels for all my major lines. So I've got the Arbitrage Band is still in bearish territory, but it's setting up. I've got the pulse is in bearish territory, but it's setting up. Now there's one line in here I didn't throw up there for you guys before. It's this purple line. That purple line is actually the mean of the intermediate band. And why it's there is it is the center of the band of the system. It's the middle band. It kind of tells me how is the system with this stock. Is it happy? Is it bullish, bearish? What? It's currently bearish, but everything looks to be curling up into bullish territory. So is Z. And we just got a bullish MACD crossover for further confirmation. So this would be one I definitely keep on watch. I forgot to ask you guys. Anyone out there are Forex traders? Do we have any Forex traders out there? I know Marie is.
Yeah, I trade Forex.
Okay. So this works on stocks, crypto, and Forex. And this is just what you're looking at is a scalp setup because I'm learning how to scalp. I've never traded Forex before this week. I can read the system. I just never traded Forex before. And so it translates to any security, really. And right now I'm looking at British pound, Canadian dollar. We've also been trading the US dollar versus the peso pretty heavily because this has been in downtrend forever. We're talking about, let's see, let me get a ruler here so I can see pips. Let's say we've got our first confirmation really there. That's 19,000 pips. Insane. Just for this to get down to our pulse where we think it'll stop the first time is what, 43,000 pips? It's a great ride down. But yeah, system works on crypto, stock, even Forex. And we scalp Forex with, this is kind of our scalp setup. Go auto. And we understand that if we're under the pink line, no sustained uptrend can take place, so we're in a sell. Even if this starts to peak up, don't take it because it can only go so far before it's that pink line again and goes down. It takes some serious energy to get through that pink line. It's significant support or resistance. Anyway, back to my evaluation. Okay, so CTRC, it looks kind of good on the 10-minute. And I like it because the pulse is buried. It looks like the pulse is just coming out. Now, the Arbitrage Band is a little further south than I would like it. And RSI looks like it's coming down in the Arbitrage Band. But this has got room, and it looks like a fair setup. I would keep an eye on Z because Z's kind of slowing. The trend's slowing here, and I don't like that MACD's curling over too. But my level's telling me that the pulse is moving up. It's about to curl up. Apocalypse is still barely drifting down, but everything else is in bullish territory. So that's definitely a watch. Let's see, PYNT. Oh, I like this one. It's a good setup. It's not got a whole lot of profit potential, though, unfortunately. So pulse is in the lower danger zone. It hasn't quite deflected yet. RSI is getting a little high in the arbitrage band, but we've got price above pulse already. So you probably can't see that. Price is sitting above the pulse. So you've got good support underneath it. So this band's going to move up. Pulse is going to move down. You're going to get some support. You might get some accumulation here. And it's only got about 5 cents to the mean, but top of the band, you've got 10 cents. It's not bad. So that's a watch. Eyes. Whew, okay. What happened here? I had a good day, that's why. So it actually went up 11%, almost 12% today. I was thinking the RSI is high on all my times. So we're going to get a dip. That is not a question. RSI is buried in the top of the upper danger zone on the arbitrage band. You can see it's already curling down. We got a blue candle. So this is going to come down. But because it's already above the pulse, what's going to happen is this arbitrage band is going to drift up, and we'll probably stop our downtrend right about here. So this probably isn't a bad place to look for entry. I don't know what time that'll be because it's a 15-minute candle. So this will drift down. But from where you are right now, you're talking about 20% to the mean. Top of the band is 162, 60% almost, or over 60%. That's actually a really nice play. In fact, that'd be one that I'm actually going to put on my list to keep a watch on. Let's see. I don't like you. Hap. No, that would be a solid no. Nope, definitely not. Maybe. He's okay on the 5-minute. Pulse is still coming down. Looks like he's going to cool off a bit because the momentum line is underneath the compass is underneath the momentum line. And it looks like levels are kind of curling down a bit, but Z is moving up in general. So he's not perfect. He's still setting up, but he's definitely worth a watch. Let's see, IDEX. Where are we at? Not worth it except for the 15-minute. He could be interesting. Pulse is climbing out already. Well, the train left the station without the band above it, but depending upon what happens, if he gets a surge, he could pop over the pulse and get support and ride up, and you're talking about 25% to the mean. So I'll keep him on watch. LAB, wow, he had a good day. Nice. Unfortunately, he's going to fall off, and the pulse is going to continue to climb. So he's kind of missing the bus at this point. It doesn't mean that he's done, but yeah, there's definitely a dip coming. I mean, you got RSI varied, RSI. So he's coming down. I probably wouldn't watch him. Yeah, he had a good day. He may need to cool off a day or two. Check him again. This is one I definitely wouldn't play myself. This guy's going to get delisted. And people are going to lose a lot of money. And there's way too much space between here. It's never going to catch it. And the RSI is buried. So he's going down before he's going up. So, no. What happened to him? He had a bad day. 35%? Oh, well, that'll do it. Chapter 11. No. LXU. Nice. I like him. And I like him on the 10-minute. And I say that because we've got a decent amount of space between the price and the mean. It is already above the pulse, and the pulse is going to deflect soon. We're probably going to get a bit of a dip looking at the RSI, but you've got good support below you. So you've got the mean of the arbitrage band, and you've got the pulse to give you some support. So I definitely like this guy. In fact, I'm putting him on my list. ONDK, not bad. 15-minute. It's a bit of a longer swing. I typically like a shorter swing, a 5 or 10-minute swing. 15 kind of gets a little bit long for me. He's above the pulse. He's got some decent profit potential between where he is and the mean. Levels are curling up. Z's already bullish and a good uptrend. MACD confirms it. Yeah, he's a definite watch. OXLC, where are we? Okay, what do we got? He's got potential. I like him. He's actually on the 15-minute because the entire arbitrage band is above the pulse. The pulse hasn't quite. Yeah, it has. Okay, we got our deflection. Looks like the apocalypse band is drifting down still. No big deal because you've still got what 55 cents between where you are and there. You're definitely going to cool off and dip a bit because your RSI, it looks like you got a deflection. You got your pink candles, and we're traveling down right now. But if you look at level, see the line, this is why we have level, because right now it looks extreme. It looks like this is really drifting down hard on you, right? But if you look at level, level's telling you, guess what? Apocalypse band is actually curling up and it's about to go bullish. And everything else is already bullish. So this is a case where your eyes can deceive you. And this is actually a fair setup. This is what are we? This is one I would probably put on watch for later this week. There's too much space between your third deviation up and the pulse, so you're not going to leg up. You've got this big gap, and something amazing would have to happen for it to get from here to here. So for tomorrow, no. And he got roughed up. What are we looking at? 306 biotech. Huh. I think it's worth a watch. Again, location of the pulse in the lower danger zone, like it's set to deflect. RSI is coming down as well, so maybe by the time the RSI deflects in the arbitrage band, you get a deflection of the pulse. We can see that the compass curled over the momentum line, so we're kind of getting an uptrend. The Z is confirming that. Z is confirming that RSI and compass are pointing up, arbitrage is pointing up. Right now, the only thing bullish is the pulse, so this is definitely not ready for entry, but it's definitely a setup. Even Z's curling up, where our downtrend is slowed, and hopefully we get curled up into a bullish uptrend. So he's definitely on a watch. We've got about 3 minutes left, guys. Are there any questions you want me to answer? Because I can go through the rest of these symbols, but if you guys have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them. You want my take on PCG? Let's see. Oof. Wow. I'm going to say there's better trades out there. And I say that because, you know, he's definitely going up, but I'm looking at what you're putting in versus what you're getting out. So 11.25 a share, your mean is 11.55. So you're making, what, 30 cents? If you get to the top, maybe you made 70 cents. So you're not even making 10% for tying your money up. It may, in terms of safe trade, yeah. I mean, it looks like a good trade. You got your entry signal here. Let me turn on Atlas to confirm. Atlas is on advanced, that's why. Let me just look at our side. Yeah. So I'm looking at this dude on the arbitrage band only. If I have to hide Apocalypse for you. Yeah, I mean, it's a safe trade on the arbitrage band, and it's a faster swing, 10 days on the arbitrage band. and your first price target is 1146 and then 1181. So sure, you can make money here, but could you make more money somewhere else? Because that's a pretty expensive stock. Okay, if you're going to swing longer term, let's see, what does he look like on the daily? Let me bring this up, and let's go to 1 day. So he's in downtrend, and you are trying to bring it up here so I can see. So what this tells you is the Apocalypse Band is drifting down every day, almost 5 cents a day, right? And your pulse is barely drifting down. So really it's just the Apocalypse Band drifting down. And unfortunately, that also tells you almost that, yeah, they're almost the same speed. Looks like Arbitrage Band, if you're already in this, let's see, what does he look like? He's sitting on RSI, so he's sitting on support right now. Compass looks like it's over momentum. So, yeah, I mean, longer term, yeah, he looks good. And if he can keep going up and meet the pulse, I mean, you're talking about what, 3-bagger? But you got to remember, the Apocalypse on a 1-day chart is a really long swing. And of course, that brings in the question: what could you make in between now and then if you were just doing shorter swings? If you're an investor and you don't swing trade or day trade, sure, go for it. Let me go back to 15 here. And auto, since I have no idea where I am. Okay. Let's look at a couple more before we go. Anyone have another symbol they want to look at? Nothing? Okay. So.
Could you look at gold?
What is that? AU. What's the symbol?
For gold is a XAU USD.
All right. Let me get my Apocalypse Band back on. Actually, it's happy on the Arbitrage Band. I'll tell you that right now. Atlas is green. You just got an entry signal. Looks like we got generally an up candle. It looks like, yeah, it's curling down though. The CZ. Z's unhappy, and you have this candle. It's being a little ambivalent right now because it's going from yellow to white. Longer term on the 15, God, that Apocalypse or the Arbitrage Band's plummeting there. Well, of course, eyes can be deceiving because it tells me that Arbitrage actually crossed into bullish territory, so it's moving up. However, the Apocalypse is still drifting down 2 cents every 15 minutes, and so is your pulse is 11 cents a minute. So you're in downtrend in general. You may have a shorter swing on the Arbitrage Band by itself, but always be aware of being crushed by the pulse. So as you uptrend here, depending on how long it takes to uptrend, don't forget this is drifting down. So right now you think you have a lot of free and clear sailing. Bring up some other bands so we can look at support and resistance in between. So when I look for support and resistance, and I look for levels of support and resistance, you know, every line in the system provides some level of support and resistance. But I want to look for real support and resistance. I look at the means of all the bands. So this is support and resistance. This is support and resistance. This is support and resistance. So you've got several levels you have to go through, right? Because nothing goes straight up or straight down. But as this is coming up, these are all going to be coming down to meet it. So you got to be aware of that. And that's, of course, risking playing something that's generally in downtrend. And that's why if I was going to do this, I would probably look for it on a much smaller time frame, more like scalping it on the 5-minute. Just quick in and out so you don't hit that. Oh, you're shorting. Okay. You got a short-term uptrend coming. It looks like longer term, you may be good. Let's see. auto. Oh yeah, look at that. Wow. He is way up there. Wow. And to show you how far out here he is, the deviations on. Wow. Yeah, you're good. So he's playing it short, and right now, it's actually the price of gold is in the third deviation up on the Apocalypse Band. So this is our big band, and this is your gravity well. Now, technically, it still has room to climb because, look, you've got room between the pulse and its upper danger zone, right? So there's no jeopardy of it deflecting anytime soon. So it could make its way up. Right now, though, I will tell you that this is the beauty of having control. Right now, the Apocalypse Band is actually drifting down a bit, but RSI is just jamming up. So band drifting down, RSI or pulse drifting up. So you're going to get a collision somewhere like here, right? That's probably where you're going to find a deflection. And your levels kind of tell the same story. Everything right now is in, for the most part, bullish territory. It looks like Apocalypse is not just on the line. You got a slow uptrend according to Z. You got a bearish MACD crossover. And you just got, looks like, are we deflecting? Did we deflect? No, we didn't deflect yet. I can tell that by this. This would be buried if we deflected. So this is still working its way up too. So it depends on how long you want to play it. It looks like it still has some up to give, but long term you should be fine. Anyway, anybody have any more questions before we call it a night?
I have one question. This is Melissa. How do you come up with your daily stock watch list?
We have a lot of analytics that go on in the background. So if I go to Arbitrage Trade Analytics, and we go to our analytics, we can actually go by our intraday filter, or we could go by a lot of different things actually. So I can look for stocks that have the pulses in the upper danger zone. And when I look at this, I say, okay, well, this is the Apocalypse upper danger zone, Novus, this is intermediate, upper, lower, arbitrage, or excuse me, advanced, upper, lower, and Apocalypse. So I had it backwards actually. Arbitrage, Novus, intermediate, advanced, Apocalypse. And you can look for, is the RSI in the upper danger zone or lower danger zone? So obviously I play up, so I would search here, and I would want to have it here, or not there, yeah, there. And then I'll say, okay, well, I want the price from, let's say, 5 cents to $20. And then there's all other kinds of filters and special sauce I use for myself. But there's a lot of ways to find it here. And those guys who play Forex, if you're on here, we have what we call a Forex heat map. And this Forex heat map is basically another cheat code. I mean, it's telling you what's ready to play, what's setting up, and which way you need to play. So if you look at your map here, or your legend here, it tells you all these pairs, what is ready to play. Like this is ready for a buy. And this is GBP AUD. And it's telling you on the 15-minute chart, it's a buy. And a GB, well, I don't play that one, but yeah, it's ready for, it's setting up. On, this is another one I wouldn't play because Turkish lira could be nothing. On the 1 day, it's also a sell. So this is doing a lot of the work for you. And these analytics get updated every, I believe, 15 minutes. So, yeah, we do a lot of work in the background for you guys to find you the pairs to play, the stocks to play. We even do crypto. Any more questions, guys? Kind of ran over our time. I'm sorry. Well, if not, thanks for joining me. We'll do this again Thursday at 6 p.m. Central. Thank you for joining me. You guys have a great night.
Thanks a lot. Good night.
Good night.